What is up, guys? Welcome to the Delta Omega Dynasty podcast. I'm your boy Joey Medina, aka Carl Weezer69. Very excited to be back here again this week to talk all things fantasy for the Delta Omega Dynasty League. Thank you guys for riding with me all season thus far. Week 6 is in the books and it's official. Um, it is definitely official that I have caught the fantasy bug. So, in addition to this podcast being a little longer, it'll be full of all sorts of content. I'm excited to bring it to you. Hopefully, y'all are excited to hear it. Um, but might as well get started. Let's just go through the scores and let's just go from there. From week 5, no, week 6. From week 6. Sorry, I got my weeks mixed up. So week 6 scores. I got me against Tommy. I win 96-84. We've got Riley at 88, Dakota 78. We got Ryan Irvin at 122. We've got Lewis at 83, Jansen 83, Liam 45, Hunter 75, Trevor 74. Then wrapping up finally with Max at 96 and Kyle at 20. So here's the question: where do we start, right? Um, and I'm thinking that we start with maybe a soundbite from last week's show, and then we'll just see where that takes us. So here's a soundbite from last week's show.
I've learned my lesson of picking that team for a while.
Okay, perfect. So I said, if didn't come through the audio, I said, until Irv shows me something different, I've learned my lesson and I'm gonna avoid picking this team for a while. Um, so how about that, right? How about that? Now, here's what I'll say, right? None of us were English scholars in college. So I took the liberty of looking up the official definition for the word a while. And much to my disappointment, Merriam-Webster's dictionary has a definition for a while as, and I quote, for a while. So that was no help at all. So then I searched while, WHILE, which is defined as a period of time, especially when short and marked by the occurrence of an action or a condition. And why do I bring this to you? Why do I bring up a dictionary of a word that we all know? We all know the definition to. Well, in a week where 96 points will get you second and third in top scoring, Irv drops 122 burger and easily takes the top scorer award this week. How about that for an occurrence of action right there to go back to the definition of the word a while? But I am here to tell you right here, right now, that a while is over and I am back on the Irv train for the time being. Um, because simply with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are on, good luck. You're going to need all the help you can get. Um, I want to say they combined for 58 points in a week like this week that we just had. That's going to get the job done 10 out of 10 times. Um, but yeah, we talked about Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. We didn't even mention Daryl Henderson, who by all accounts is going to be the lead back for the Rams from here on out. Not to forget Najee Harris and Joe Mixon, who could explode for anywhere from 15 to 25 points on any given week. Not to forget a Hall of Famer. Yes, I said it. Hall of Famer at wide receiver 2 and Mike Evans. He's been a little shaky the last couple of weeks, but he's still Mike Evans. Still going to put up those numbers. Oh, and by the way, don't forget the highest drafted tight end in NFL history, who, while the yards weren't there, found his way into the end zone this week for the Atlanta Falcons and Kyle Pitts. Now, I know what you're thinking. You heard Najee and you heard Pitts, and you're like, yeah, overrated, overdrafted, overhyped. Still, I mean, am I, the lackluster performances, they're gonna happen, right? Maybe they're not living up to their expectations of their ADP, However, I do think that um, I do think that it's not wrong for many of you guys to question their fantasy prowess, their fantasy ability this year. But I'm certainly not counting out the possibility of them figuring it out. I mean, are you? I mean, would you be surprised at all if Kyle Pitts and Najee Harris went on a tear and finished top five in their respective positions? I mean, we're still kind of early here. We're about midway through the fantasy season, but and things can happen. Um, just got to get a couple weeks good together, and you never know. Now, all right, I know that I got all that praise out there. All right, I have to swing the other side of the sword here, for lack of better metaphors. This is a 2-4 team, and you know it's going to be no easy task for Irv to get some wins and make a playoff push. So to an extent, am I overreacting? Yes, a bit. It is still a 2-4 team, um, but I will point out that this team, Irv's team, is favored in 6 out of its last 8 games. Um, and I'm very, very comfortable, and I've come to terms with the many, many bad takes that I've had thus far this season. I have no problem taking a flyer on this team to look like a genius. Of course, as every time I put my faith in this team, he loses, and every time I don't, he wins. So we're just gonna ride it, and for better or for worse, you can clown me if I'm way off, but I might say Irv might have a chance at getting into the playoffs here. He's got Hunter this week, and then maybe he can string together a couple more wins in a row, and he's right back in the hunt. Um, so yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I've kind of been talking up his team a lot right now, so it's time to move on to something else. But fear not, we are not done talking week 6. We're gonna transition to a segment, what I like to call winners and losers from the week. This will be no particular order, but um, we'll go winner, loser, winner, loser, winner, loser, alternating just to keep you guys on track in the loop. So let's just get into it. Our first winner of the week is myself, and I get it. Slice of humble pie here, but 5 out of 6 weeks in 5 out of 6 weeks, top three in scoring. Um, this is not where I want to keep the focus of this winner category, though. This is not why I'm going to give this team the Delta Omega Dub, trademark pending, this week. I am, of course, referring to the standings when it comes to my team. I get the win. Kyle gets a loss. Tommy gets a loss. Trevor gets a loss this week, all resulting in a bump for my team that I go up to number 2 in the league. Number 1, if I'm not mistaken, in the APC, the apartment conference. I almost said complex. I might say that again later in the show. However, as things stand, I am number 1 in the apartment conference. Let me double check before I just keep spewing that. Anyways, while I'm doing that, um, yeah. So this could be. Why do I bring this up? So I move to um, like I said, I moved to the number 1 position in the apartment conference. I just checked it; it's confirmed. And this is big news because it could my team could definitely set up shop there at the top of the standings for the rest of the season. I'm gonna have some tough bye weeks, some tough matchups coming up, but are you going to count me out from winning out here? I mean, you guys keep ranking me number 1 every week. So 3 wins in a row, moving up in the standings, top scorer again. Things are looking up for this team, regardless of my bias towards it. That's enough about me. We're going on to the first loser of the week, and that one would belong to Lewis. And here's why. All right. He's 1-5. That's no secret. Last week might have been a must-win game against Irv. Um, that loss, I know Irv played really well. Really could have put a damper on any of Lewis's potential playoff aspirations. That is a little bit obvious, but what I really want to hit on the head here is I want to talk about something that Lewis can't control, which is points allowed. Um, Lou has faced teams that have put up a league leading 663 points against. That's 110 and a half points a week for those counting at home. On average, uh, Lou is without a doubt a certainly a better team than his record shows. I think we can all agree with that. Do you really think 663 points allowed? That's hard. I'm pretty sure only I have scored more points than that. Um, than that's been allowed. So that's not looking so good. Anyways, but what's straight up brutal about Lewis's team and why it kind of cemented himself in this loser of the week, if you will, is when you factor in that Jansen has only scored 13 more points total than Lewis, and he has a 5-1 league leading number one in the standings record. So yeah, I feel for you, Lou. That's fantasy football for you. Um, I kind of feel bad putting you a loser, but I think things can't get worse than they already are. So future should look bright. You have a good young team. Moving on, second winner of the week is Riley. League leading 4 weeks and 4 wins in a row. He takes over second place in the APC and will continue to roll. As I took a look at his upcoming schedule, as he has Tommy this week without the Bills, followed by Kyle without the Chiefs, followed by Trevor without the Niners, followed by Hunter Lewis Max before he finishes with me and Jansen to end the year. Um, when I saw that, I was like, man, this guy really must make the schedules. But no, in all seriousness, when I was looking at the schedule, I'm thinking without a doubt we're looking at a double-digit win team this year, and I think the championship contender status should be in play. The power rankings should get a bump, especially here in the next few weeks. This is a team that could definitely get the number one spot in the playoffs for sure. Would not be surprised, I should say. Um, yeah, that's a huge thing. That's why he's on the winner of the week part of the show. So we said a lot about that. Moving on to the second loser of the week, we have Kyle, and Kyle probably doesn't want to hear it, but Kyle has dropped two in a row, and when his opponents have scored over 75 points, he is now 1-2. Um, Now, let me say, I'm not out on this team yet. Um, he hasn't put up 100 points, hasn't hit that 100-point mark since week two. I know he had one that was 98, but the cutoff was 100, so like he basically scored it one of those weeks, but he hasn't eclipsed the 100 point mark since week two. Um, and then when you look at his schedule, he's got a gauntlet of Jansen, Riley, Dakota, and myself the next 4 weeks. This is a team that could be, well, we're going to have to take a real look at it, this team throughout the next month of time, just because I think this next month will directly correlate to whether this team makes the playoffs, is in playoff contention still, or is he, does he drop 3 out of 4 in the next 4 weeks and he's sitting around a little less than a little under 500? That's a completely different story than what we're telling now, where he's 4-2. Very intrigued. Kyle's definitely a team I'll be watching um, to see how it performs over the next 4 weeks because it's a crucial part of the season for him. Third winner of the week is Liam, and I will tell you why. Now, you might be wondering why Irv is not on the winners of the week this week. I gave him his just due in that first segment of the show, um, and I kind of touched on everything I wanted to touch on with him. But we got to go to Liam, show him some love. He had a 45-point week, complemented with a Hunter win. That definitely is a dream week for Liam, who now takes over sole possession of the number one pick for now. Brees Hall has arrived as a star, and I would say a top 10 dynasty asset. at least, if not now, maybe here in the next couple weeks. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for if you're Liam, right? You're losing, your stars are playing well, your rookies are kind of showing out. Um, Now he's in control of his own destiny for the number one pick, um, surrounded by Hunter with all the other top four picks, I might add. Uh, so that's a good transition to the final loser of the week. And for this one, I said Trevor slash Hunter, which is an expected double whammy for the final loser of the week. Let's start with Trevor. First off, I gotta point out, and I'm not worried about this team at all. Um, last week was a bad week. It happens, but it is worth noting that losing to Hunter, putting up 75 points, probably should be a qualifier for any team to show up on the loser of the week spot. I get it. Derrick Henry's on bye. MVS, I think, put up a goose egg. Aaron Jones didn't show up. Like I said before, this is your typical bad week. It happens to everybody at some point in the season. But it really did come at a bad time. This loss was couldn't have been timed worse because a win would have put him at the top of the CTBNL, the conference to be named later, which I think just might be its name at this point. Uh, Overall for Trevor, this one hurts, but I think this team will be just fine as it gets, I think he's mostly at full strength this week, but as the buys continue to go, I think he'll be fine. And once we get out of the buy period, I think when he's at full strength, barring injury, should be a force to be reckoned with come playoff time. Moving on to Hunter for this for Hunter, this one hurts even more. It's very much an unexpected win. You got to think when you're playing Trevor that if you put up 75, your goose is very well cooked. However, that's not the case. Um, but even more brutal for Hunter is that he won this game by less than a point. Not only that, Melv actually got demoted to third string mid game on Monday night and didn't see the field after three carries. Um, Basically, when I was watching Monday night, I was thinking Melv was doing anything he can to help Hunter lose. Um, but here comes I don't know what a good metaphor would be, but the opposite of knight in shining armor for Hunter is Brandon McManus, who delivered a 7 point game to give him the win over Trevor. And if you add in a loss by Liam, who now sits at 1-5, Hunter finds himself outside of the top spot for his own personal pick, I might add, for the time being. Um, we had Lou against Irv, so it was basically the Hunter first round pick bowl at this point. So he was going to have a win there, anyways. Lewis loses, Irv wins. I still think we're looking at for sure. I think three top six picks, um, perhaps better. Um, but yeah, but Liam now sits in the driver's seat for the number one pick. Maybe that's not so bad, and you won't have to pick between Bijan or Gibbs. The option I'm sure would be nice. Maybe you like one more than the other, but as we sit now, Liam has the number one pick, and for that reason, Hunter is on the loser poll this week. There you go. That's the week 6 winners and losers. Um, we are going to move forward with a tier list because I know you guys like your lists. Um, so, what I'm going to do is share my screen so you can see it. And I will offer some commentary. Let me see here. Can you guys see that all? Perfect. I think that'll fit on the screen. So yeah, let's go to the tier list. So I did share with you guys my screen. Um, and I will justify my placements here in a second. As you can see what I have done. I didn't do any cool reveals or anything because I thought you guys would like the information up front and you can process it anyways. as you can see, if you can't read that font, the top tier going from top to bottom, we got championship contenders in the red, playoff probables in the orange, playoff hopefuls in the yellow, maybe next year in the green, and the um, Bijan Gibbs, what do you call it? Color tab, tier list, whatever, is in blue. Um, so yeah, just like I just went through top to bottom, I will be discussing why most teams are in their respective tiers. So let's start with championship contenders here in the red. No shock here, I don't think, unless you're just really low on Trevor after that Hunter performance. But when I looked at this, where me and Trevor are both top scorers in the league, loaded rosters, I would say, when you're looking at the grand scheme of things. I don't think you guys would have a problem with me if I said both of these teams won the rest of their games, the rest of the season. Um, so we're both definitely capable of that. Trevor, like I said, Trevor had a bad week. My hands are kind of steady on. I don't know why I did this, but my hands are steady on Trevor. Um, even after a rough week. And then as for me, you guys keep ranking me number one, so I feel like I got to be up there as an objective. I don't know, third party. I know I can't be a third party in this, but I'm trying to have an outside looking in approach when I do these and talk about my team. Um, Last thing I'll say about this tier is the 12 and 2 dream is still alive for both of them, both of us. Um, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Moving on, we got the playoff probables. And so in this tier, you have two really good teams that both bolster at least 3 game winning streaks right now. Um, Very, very possible for these two teams to transition to that championship contender um, tier. And I mean, in theory, it's possible that they could go down to playoff hopefuls as well. But if I could bet on this, if this was something that was bettable, I would bet that they would transition up rather than down if I had to pick one of the two. Uh, but yeah, I placed Riley and Jansen both in this tier because, well, they're very capable of putting up a lot of points. Um, it's not really, this is more of a, have I seen it week in, week out that they can continue to put up huge numbers if they had to play somebody like me or Trevor who puts up at least like 115 to 120 points a game. I know that's not the right average, but you know what I mean. At any time, we could drop a crap ton of points. Do these teams have the firepower to compete with that? And I think the answer is definitely yes, they're capable, but you know, I don't know. For example, my team is lowest point total is 96, 2 times, 230 plus point games before that. Trevor has a couple of 120 point games, if I remember correctly. Uh, you know, is it gonna? I know it's early, but is it? You see why I put them here, and it's no slight on their teams. Um, but I just think they're just a step below and definitely could go up and challenge me and Trevor. Moving on, I still really think last thing I'll say about the playoff probables is a really good place to be in the league at this point because getting to the playoffs is half the battle, and then getting hot is the other half, in my opinion. Um, Moving on to the yellow tab, which is playoff hopefuls. Um, this one is kind of weird, right? Because this is the transition between some of these teams could be playoff teams. Some of these teams will be left out, obviously, because if I have the probables and the championship contenders, that's 4 out of 6 spots already taken. And there's 4 teams in this playoff hopeful tab, meaning 2 will be in, 2 will be out, barring I'm right on the next 2 tiers. So yeah, I have Kyle, Tommy, Dakota, Nerve. Um, so yeah, like I said, this one's weird. I rediscovered my love and fandom for Irv's team. If he gets hot, I really do think he can knock 2 of the other 3 out of this tier from playoff hopefuls to maybe next year. Um, I don't know if I'd bet on that or not, but we'll have to watch that one closely. For Dakota, he has a good roster. But he's on a bit of a skid, not too many surprises just because of that early schedule. Should be getting easier from here on out. So there's definitely a path for him to get in the playoffs as Keenan Allen should be coming back from injury, you would think. Um, a bunch of other guys would be big contributors. James Conner's been out for a while. I'm not ready to get write this team off into maybe next year. I know he's still 2-4, just like Irv, but I think those two teams that are 2-4 have the best chance of making the playoffs. As for Kyle and Tommy, I kind of think they're on the same plane to some degree. You can't deny that they both have had flashes of great fantasy play, putting up some big numbers. Um, and will probably be the final two teams in if Dakota and Irv both continue their losing ways. Um, well, I guess Dakota lost, Irv won, but continue their 2-4 caliber play, I should say. But nonetheless, I think Kyle and Tommy are potentially dangerous lineups that if they got hot and got into the playoffs, I think they could make a little noise in the play. If they can make a little noise in the playoffs if their rosters get hot and their players perform well. So yeah, that's a playoff hopefuls. Next year, maybe next year, Max is 3-3, Lewis is 1-5. So why in the world are they in the same tier? Well, Max, by all accounts, did not seem too happy about being Kyle this week. But and I don't know. I think it's safe to say that um, he doesn't want to win this year. Add on, he's got a little bit of an aging, inconsistent roster. You got a team that, barring a miracle, which he has, done twice, 2 years in a row. Um, he won't make the playoffs if something doesn't if he doesn't continue to if he continues his winning ways. Sorry if I'm stumbling on my words. If he continues his winning ways, he has a shot at the playoffs, and maybe he has a chance to shock the world again. But I don't think he wants to win. And I don't think he might not have the horses to win this year, anyways. So that's why I put him in this maybe next year tab. Um, and then for Lewis, like we said, it's been well documented that he's been unlucky with points allowed this year. But at the end of the day, it's a 1-5 mountain that he's going to have to climb in a more competitive league this year than I feel like in past years. Um, I think that it's going to be little too late because I'm over here thinking Dakota and Irv are going to have a tough time getting in with an extra win under their belt. So that's why I probably put him at maybe next year. He's got a young team. I expect him to be at least a couple tiers up, maybe even two or three um, next year by this time. And then finally, the Bijan Gibbs tier. This is basically the tanking tier, as most of these rosters together would probably not be in great shape compared to the rest of the league. Um, this is where they want to be, and the bottom line is, you know, Liam has the upper hand and the number one pick, but Hunter will probably have the next 2 to 5 after that, or sorry, 2 to 3 after that. Um, but anything can happen. Very excited to see how the rest of the season goes off. But there we go. That is my tier list right now. With that established, and I will stop sharing my screen. With that established, um, we will go into what is next on the list, which is um, we'll look ahead at next or at this week, I should say. All right. Last week's results 3-3. Predicting games. Um, the current record for the season is 20-16. And at this point, I just feel like it is what it is. It's not great, it's not bad. Um, One of these weeks I'll get it right and I'll celebrate. So without further ado, let's get into to this week's games. And for this analysis, I did a little bit more in depth. So hopefully I can maybe get some more information out there. So here we go. First matchup. We've got myself against Max. I am at 4-2. Max is at 3-3. This is a rematch of the 2021 finals where Max did in fact beat me to win his second straight championship. Still salty about that. When we look at the notable buys, notable players on buys, I have Cooper Cup and AJ Brown who are on buy, and Max has Allen Robinson and the Rams defense on buy. So what is at stake for this matchup? With if I win, I improve to 5-2. Max falls to 3-4. I should, barring anything crazy, with a win, retain the top spot in the APC and top spot in the league if Kyle beats Jansen. Max subsequently will be taking the next step and vying for a top 5 pick with a loss. Um, so yeah, moving on. If Max wins, Max improves to 4-3, and perhaps thinks about going on maybe one more run before blowing up the roster altogether. I get it; he's traded some players already, but you never know. It's him; he could find a way to get it done. But 4-3, you got to think if he wins, he's not going to get a top 5 pick. You would think. So maybe he goes out and makes a trade with some of those picks that he's acquired. Anyways, and the possibility Max could fall to, or sorry, going on to me. Uh, if Max wins, I would fall to 4-3 with the possibility of falling to third in the APC. And I think the playoffs at this point, even if I lose, is still in play. The potential playoff bye week, which is kind of important because you never know. You have a bad week in that first round, then you're out for the year. But it'll be harder to attain with a loss for me this week at 4-3. As far as predictions go, I think it's very possible for both teams to win. Cup and Brown, who have been two of my better players this year, are both on bye, which is brutal. Um, I am currently planning to start Deontay Johnson and Jacoby Myers, which I almost couldn't stomach saying to you guys. So I think there's a very good possibility that they only put up like 10 points together. Um, so with that being said, I think this one is an upset watch, because I think for the most part, you guys would probably pick me in this matchup, but I think the bye weeks are brutal here for me. And I think this one is an upset. I think I might ride with Max just so it's a little bit of a consolation if I do lose, and if I'm wrong, it's a consolation that I win, so it makes me feel better. So I'm going to pick Max this week in a very very tight one. I'm thinking I don't know if I had to make a score prediction. I'm thinking like 92 to 88 or something like that. I'm thinking it might be that close. But I've got Max taking it. I've got to be more bold. I've got to figure out a new strategy how to pick these because I keep finishing 3-3. I had a 5-1 and a 4-2 the last 2 weeks, but I came back down to earth this week with 3-3. This one is make or break for this week's predictions. Anyways, moving on to our next matchup of the week. Um, we've got Riley at 4-2 against Tommy at 4-2. Um, I think this is a reality check for one of these two rosters. I said this last week for Tommy as a measuring stick game against me. Um, he falls short, but he is 4-2. But here we have a make or break game between 4-2 teams. Um, on one hand, you have Riley who loses the Tommy without the Bill stack. That's just not a good look for your team going forward. And on the other hand, if Riley wins, Tommy will have dropped 2 straight and will quickly have gone from 4-2 or 4-1 to 4-3. So that doesn't feel too good in a playoff race that is starting to heat up. Um, I'm not worried about both of these teams out of the playoffs just yet, but Tommy's going to have a lot harder. Tommy or Riley, I should say, will have a way tougher road at 4-3 than at 5-2, and that much is obvious. I get it, but 5-2 feels a whole lot better when you're thinking about playoffs and 4-3. This is a good matchup, and I'll definitely be tuning into this one. A shame Tommy doesn't have the Bills because I think it could be a good matchup. But uh, let's get into our notable buys as we segue from that last sentence. Uh, Riley's got Miles Sanders and Stephon Diggs on bye, and Tommy has Josh Allen, Gabe Davis, and Dawson Knox. Now I know he doesn't start Dawson Knox, but I threw him in there because he's the Bills. So what's at stake here? What is at stake? So with a Riley win, Riley improves to 5-2, and will be at worst second in the APC, potentially first if I'm correct in my prediction of Max beating me. Um, and championship contender talks I think begin to pick up a lot of steam for this team if Riley gets the win and I get the loss. Maybe even if just Riley gets the win. Um, and excuse me, as a result of Riley winning, Tommy must lose. Tommy falls to 4-3 and will have to perform really well the rest of the year because I don't think 4-3 guarantees you a playoff spot at this point. Moving on to Tommy's, if Tommy wins, Tommy improves to 5-2. At worst, will be third in the CTBNL, potentially first or second, depending on how Trevor and Jansen's games go. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's a lot to play this week for this matchup. And then on the other side, we got Riley falling to 4-3 if Tommy wins, with the potential of being anywhere from second to fourth in the APC, depending on other games. So, with that being said, and that being all in stake, the prediction, I don't know. This one's tough. Not really though, because I think without the Bills, um, I think that the bye weeks will really hurt Tommy. If JT comes back and goes berserk, um, I think I've got Riley in a comfortable victory this week, just because the Bills are on bye, and I think Riley will continue to put up points with Saquon. Kyler could be good this week against the Saints here on Thursday night. But yeah, if JT doesn't go berserk, I think Riley wins pretty comfortably. Next game, we've got Irv versus Hunter, 2-4, and I really don't think anyone expected Irv and Hunter to have the same record through 6 weeks, but here we are. Notable buys: Irv's got Daryl Henderson, Devin Singletary on bye. Hunter's got Stafford and Devontae Smith on bye this week. So what is at stake? If Irv wins, he improves to 3-4. The uphill battle for the playoffs continues. At the very best in the standings, he will move up to 4 in the CTBNL, and Hunter would fall to 2-5. He will remain the number 5 team in the CTBNL and in the hunt, LOL, for the number 1 pick. If Hunter wins, Hunter improves to 3-4, and the likelihood of his pick being the number 1 starts to get slim. He would move up to 4th in the CTBNL and is very disappointed. Then Irv would fall to 2-5. I completely jumped ship on Irv's team, and Hunter is no longer disappointed because he has Irv's first round pick. You thought I forgot. But here we are, the official prediction. I would avoid picking this team for a while, in quotes. Doesn't last very long, coming from last week, because I expect Irv's team to win. When I looked at both their rosters, I like the talent that he has at the moment. I will have Irv taking this one. Hopefully, it doesn't backfire because I've been picking Irv a lot and he keeps losing. But I'm riding with Irv. Gotta sync with the ship, I guess, right? Um, yeah. So moving on, we have Liam versus Lou in the next matchup. 1-5 versus 1-5. Bringing up the rear in the league is these two teams, who, in my opinion, have a lot to play for this week. Liam wants the number 1 pick. Lou, well, I said this. I wrote this before he said something in the chat about rooting for Hunter, but I said Lewis probably wants his first to be as bad as possible as Hunter is in possession of his pick. But if he's rooting for Hunter, then maybe Lewis doesn't have a whole lot to play for. But anyways, notable buys. Liam has Tyler Bass and Tyler Higbee. Not too bad of a hit. Lewis has got Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and Dallas Goddard. And if things couldn't get worse for Lewis, he has to face. I mean, it's not like he's facing. I mean, in all due respect, Liam's team is good, but it's not. It's a couple years away. Um, but he's got to face a talented team with young players that are getting better every week without Kirk Cousins, which is a starting quarterback. So hopefully Tua will play. Justin Jefferson, a great player, top 2 or 3 dynasty wide receiver people player, definitely top 2. I don't even know why I said top 3. And then Dallas Goddard, who's a pretty solid tight end. So what happens, right? What's at stake here? For a Liam win, he improves to 2-5. He moves to fourth in the APC, and then increases Hunter's odds to number 1 pick drastically. Um, as he gives Lewis another loss, which helps Hunter and gets a win, which bumps him up in the standings and allows Hunter to come back down. And for Lou, if Liam wins, he falls to 1-6, and the dreadful season, the nightmare, will continue. So what happens if Lewis wins? Lewis improves to 2-5, fourth in the APC, similarly to Liam. Liam falls to 1-6, is in further control of the number 1 pick. Yeah, so when we take a look at this prediction, the lose bye weeks, buys his players on buys this week hurts really bad. But if you're gonna have to play somebody with your best players on bye, might as well be Liam. Hopefully Tua plays. Like I said, I bet Kenneth Walker will get a start this week. Definitely winnable game for both, I would say. I was thinking Liam just because I thought of riding his young roster a little bit to maybe carry him for a win, especially with Lou shorthanded. But Lou's got some solid depth for a team that's 1-5, and I think I'll go with him. And I think it'll be close. I think this is another exciting game to watch. Um, just if you like to watch 2 1-5 teams go at it, then yeah, then it'll be a fun one to watch. But I will be nonetheless tuned in. And next matchup, we have Dakota at 2-4 and Trevor at 4-2. This is an interesting matchup here as Dakota could be very could let me rephrase that. Sorry. Interesting matchup right here, just because I think Dakota could be playing for his playoff life. There we go. With 3 teams of 4-2 or better in his conference, 2-5 seems like everything would have to go 100% right for Dakota to make playoffs. Um, a lot can happen, but this is one for sure. Like I said on the last one, and the other ones, I'll be tuned into this one, but this one I'll actually be really tuned into um, this week. Notable buys: Dakota has Jalen Hurts and Adam Thielen, and Trevor is pretty much at full strength. Um, Dakota, what's at stake? All right, Dakota wins. Dakota improves 3-4, keeping himself in the playoff picture for sure. At best, will stay at 4 in the CTBNL. Trevor would then fall to 4-3. That will be 2 or 3 in the conference based on the other games results. And if Trevor wins, Trevor improves to 5-2, and will be the 1 or 2 in the CTBNL conference to be named later for those that forgot. Playoffs and first round bye are all very much in play if Trevor wins. Dakota falls 2-5, maybe dashing any hope at playoffs if Trevor wins. So prediction time, right? I don't think buys are really a factor in this one. Hopefully, Dakota's team can get healthy just to see a good matchup. Trevor's team, like I said, relatively at full strength, not really any buys. I think I've got to rock with Trevor if he's got a full healthy roster over Dakota. Okay, moving on to the last matchup of the week, where we have Kyle at 4-2 versus Jansen at 5-1. Excellent game. On paper is my game of the week. Depending on the outcome, Kyle could be regarded as a contender if he wins, or I think the pretender talks start to pick up steam if he starts to lose and drops 3 straight. Um, as always, like I said, I'm realizing I said on every single one of these matchups, this one should be fun to watch. This one is definitely one to watch this week, as massive implications, leak storylines, narratives will be written because of this game, and I'll be bringing it to you next week, hopefully on Wednesday. barring me being busy like I was this week. Anyways, so notable buys. Kyle is good. Doesn't have anything too crazy on buys. Um, and Jansen's got Dalvin Cook on buy, which is interesting. So, what is at stake for this matchup? With a Kyle win, Kyle improves to 5-2 and could be anywhere from 1-3, 1-2-3 in the APC, depending on mine and Riley's games. Um, Jansen would fall to 5-2. Same goes for him. He could be 1-3 in the CTBNL, depending on Trevor and Tommy's games. Um, so yeah, that would be interesting if Kyle won this game. And then so what happens if Jansen wins, right? Jansen would improve to 6-1 and is number one in the CTBNL. 6-1, is nothing short of remarkable, right? At this point in the season, and I think should catapult him to contenders status. Even if he wins 90 and Kyle puts up, even if he puts up 90 and Kyle puts up like 82, I know it's not impressive, but he's still getting the job done. So I think even if that would happen, I think you've got to start looking at him into a championship contender, especially with Dalv on bye. Kyle would then fall to 4-3, losing three straight, is at best third in the APC. So what is it? What are we going to predict here, right? Kyle's at full strength, at least in terms of bye weeks. I do think Michael Thomas is probably going to miss the game, but that's okay. Sun God off a bye should be pretty good, um, especially with no Jameson Williams. Don't think we'll expect to see him until at least Thanksgiving. That doesn't matter. Uh, and so, yeah. Uh, I feel like since Kyle's a relatively at full strength, I feel like he has to get the job done. Like there's no excuses. Um, you know, especially if you have your third bad week in a row, at least as far as I can remember. But yeah, as for Jansen, he's down on bye. We already said that, and I think that even with Delve, he's putting up 89 to 92 points, but outside of that one outlier week where he put up 122. So I think it would be safe to assume without one of his best players that 80 to 85 points might be where he lands, and unless his team goes off, of course. But how are you going to predict that? The real question in this matchup is, can Kyle's team beat 80 to 85 points? Like we haven't seen it in a while. I would like to say yes, because he put up 130 in week two. So maybe we'll see Kyle get the return to form here. We shall see about this matchup. It's very hard to pick against a 5-1 team as well. Um, Kyle's matchups are very good when I'm looking at his matchup here, or the his players' matchup. A lot of green for the most part. If Damian Harris plays, I gotta say that Ramondre probably takes a hit. And I'm thinking maybe Jansen if Damian Harris plays. If not, if he doesn't play, I think I might just ride with Kyle. So I know I need to make a decision, but I think if Damian Harris plays, could go a long way in deciding this one. So that's how I'm going to ride with it. If Damian Harris plays, the pick is going to be Jansen. If he doesn't, I'm taking Kyle. Uh, so yeah, interesting stuff. So I think to recap, for those of you not counting at home, this one is Kyle or Jansen. I'm kind of leaning towards Kyle a little bit. I'm thinking maybe he can do it. Uh, I don't know. It's a bold take, uh, especially with Dalv on bye. I think I might ride with Kyle, but I still stand by. I'll be counting it as Jansen's if Damon Harris plays. Anyways, and then I predicted Trevor, Lewis, Irv, Riley, and Max to win this week. We'll see how that ends up. Um, to say I'm confident about it would be lying to you. Sorry, I can't speak sometimes, but would be lying to you if I would say I was confident in my predictions this week, but maybe that's a good sign considering I'm usually confident in my predictions and I end up with 3-3, um, at least more times than not this year, I would say. So that'll do it for the podcast this week. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully, I didn't bore you too much. Um, so yeah, that'll do it. I'll see you guys either this weekend for Oktoberfest or back here next week for another edition of the podcast. So yeah, see you guys next week at the very least.